and then early 2000s. Terry Records, all kinds of books at the libraries, talking to all kinds of people. I traveled to West Virginia, Ohio, Arizona, and many other places, as years went past, and collected pictures, kind of like these right here. And I've got a ton of records of my ancestors. And Seeds to Freedom talked about one time, do we have traits that are passed down, genetically passed down, kind of like your eyes are blue, do we have any of their memories or any of their traits like deja vu? And that I can't answer, but I can answer, you know, the way you're raised gets passed on down, and then people do it a little bit different and a little bit different. But some of the things, like this is my great great grandfather and his second wife and his son. And down here, this is my grandfather, William, and his mom, Ava, and a brother and a sister of his. And I did my family history and put together quite a bit of information. And I'm not here to, connect with other people in the family, but, kind of express how important it is for you to collect data and know who you're from. And, like this here, I've got more and more pages and more books or things, data. And like with this picture here, I'm not a hunter, but you can see that geese or ducks were something that were, hunted in my family, in the past. And then in this picture, this is my grandpa Andrew, and I'm not sure who everybody else is in the picture, but they've got a raccoon, and I really don't. If you're hungry, I can see raccoon and skunk, but I was not raised to eat stuff like that. And my mom never made stuff like that either. But it looks like someone came and left, and I'm not sure if anybody's really even interested in all this. And what's that called? Let me turn the camera around and just show you some of the pictures that I've collected. It's having a hard time turning. Okay. This is great Uncle Charlie, and then my dad's aunts here, my dad's uncle and his wife, my dad's aunt and her husband, all of her kids, and then my grandpa Kendall and his wife Margie, and 1970 my grandpa Kendall and his wife Margie, done with Photoshop. And this is my great grandparents on my grandma's side. That's my grandma right there. Let's see if I can get this out of the sun. My grandma and grandpa and Uncle Orville, and I'm not sure who the kid is. And then my dad and my cousin's husband, my grandpa, right here. My grandpa's father is right here. My Aunt Lucille. And then all of my dad's brothers and sisters, Virginia and Ohio and Illinois. And then this is my dad's family. My dad, when he was service, this is 1957. And then my real dad is, and that's Uncle John, and then his dad, Kendall. And then grandma and grandpa, aunts, two aunts, and then I've got pictures of Kentucky relations and Ohio relations, and in Illinois, in Jamestown, Ohio, my dad's family came from Virginia and went to Ohio. And they were some of the first settlers. And then Jamestown, Ohio, is said to be named after my great great grandfather's brother, James Browder. And then this lady here, this is, I'm not going to do too many names, but this is Mary, and she was included in a book, Out of the Wilderness, and they included a poem that she wrote and then a biography of how she lived. And it's kind of really amazing that, you know, I'm not sure if you'd want to hear any of this, but I'm going to go ahead and read some of it because it's really interesting. It says, I Mary, daughter Lambert, daughter in a family of 11 children, was born October 4th, 1888, in a pioneer log cabin 3 miles north of Jamestown, Ohio. My father, Fletcher, was a farmer and shoemaker, was one of the earlier settlers in Greene County. Although crippled from his youth, he farmed 125 acres of land, most of which he was heavily timbered. Necessary hardwood and clear before it could be tilled. Therefore, but wait a minute, since there was only one son in the family, we sisters considered it our duty to help out in every way we could. I donned all my overalls and assisted in clearing in the timber. And I've always been a lover of nature and fond of any um, work which takes one out into God's sunshine, and I thoroughly enjoy his work. Although it was quite hard for a young girl, I helped to saw logs with a cross-cut saw, to split rails, to gather brush, trim logs, which was sent to the mill. We sawed it into lumber. I split cords of wood and did a man's work. We needed no games such as they have today for exercise, since we had enough hard labor to strengthen our muscles. We had no modern day labor saving devices. Father and mother's children had to put their shoulders into the wheel and work early and late in order to have the necessary articles of life. In my day, corn and wheat were planted by hands to prepare the soil for corn. Father, let me make sure you're not out of focus. Father would furrow out one way, then with a single plow and a horse, he would come across the opposite way. Some of the children would follow with aprons full of corn, dropping by hand, while others wait a second, I'm messing this up. Our wheat was broadcast by hand, and as there was no self-binders in those days, when ready to harvest, the ripe wheat was cradled by hand and it fell in swaths. These swaths were gathered the following following and bounding into bundles, which were tied with bands made of the wheat's own straw. Often, when the corn was ready to husk, it was hauled in, and we had a social gathering called husking, to which many neighbor families would come to help in the husking. This was a time for frolic and feasting as well as work. The young men were stimulated to work fast by a special expedient. Finding a red ear of corn gave one the right to kiss some young lady. That's funny. The luckiest lad was the one who found the most red ears, which of course would not be discovered until the husks were removed, which was an inducement that led them to work fast. Also, the faster they worked, the sooner they could feast and frolic. So the corn was sown in a finer toe. That doesn't make sense to me. Sorry. We carded and spun the wool for our winter clothes and for the horse, which were knitted by hand and daughters of the family. During the winter, when the outdoor work was slack, Father made boots, and shoes for the family as well as for families of the entire community. In my day, we received a very limited education. We attended school But 6 months of the year, those were the days of the three R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Sorry, I can't get that. What's they called? Wording right the way they would say it. These being mastered grammars, geography. Wait a minute. These being mastered, grammar and geography were added. There were no schools and buildings with marble stairways, electric lights, gymnasiums, swimming pools, and the like. The buildings were rudely built. The first school I attended was built of rough logs dabbed between with clay. We sat on benches made of thick puncheons, having two legs at each end, whittled from hickory. These had no backs, so were very uncomfortable. Each held a dozen or so children. There were no desks in which to keep your books, so those not in use were kept on the floor directly under the owner. At the end of the day, they were placed on the bench or on the teacher's desk. School days were happy days, even though reading, writing, and arithmetic were taught to a tune of a hickory stick. Although we had no fine church buildings dedicated to the worship, we nevertheless worshiped him in the same way we worship him today. We attended Sunday school and preaching services in our school. Our mode of travel varied. Most of the people went either by wagon or horseback, and we had to rise with the sun in order to be at the meeting in time. Now we're there a few minutes. This is a wonderful age which we are now living, and I'm thankful to the all-wise Creator that I am still with you. And then, husk you may be sure, in many neighborhoods, old-fashioned barn dances followed bountiful evening meals. The form of amusement never took place in our barn. However, our father was greatly opposed to dance. Our immediate neighborhood was fortunate to have several young people who had talent for vocal music, and our parents were fond of it. We spent many an evening in a community sing. The wheat was threshed in the barn floor with flails. This instrument consisted of a wooden handle over at our outer end of which was hung a shroud stick called a swingle, attached to a leather strap to make the swinging freely. In flailing the wheat, the flail was swung from left to right and vice versa. All members of the family who were strong enough were given a flail. We had great fun swinging and swinging as we worked, keeping time with the song on the barn floor with our flailing. In our days, since there was little time for outside pleasure, we had to manufacture our fun out of our work as we went along. Our bedding, carpets, boots, shoes, and much of the material for dresses were made in the home, and often we made social events of these necessities. My father raised the flax from which mother wove our linens to prepare the flax for spinning, and weaving required a great deal of time and labor. The holes were broke with a flax break. The flax was thrown over a bevel board pegged to the ground, and the holes were scrooched off with a wooden knife. It was then hacked with a coarse hackle, to get the coarse toe, and then a fine hackle to get the fine toe. We spun the toe on a large spinning wheel. It was ready for the loom. Our bed ticking and towels were made from the coarse toe, and the fine was used for weaving the finer towing that made our dresses. Our linen thread for sewing was also made that way. But that's all I'll go on to say for right now. But you know, I hope you enjoyed hearing some of her life story and how they made you know, farming the land and helping their parents into fun and everyday life. And then I've, included some of my story or some of my family into this stuff, but it's like a lifelong adventure creating your family history. I've gathered, like the family things and then done pictures for my mom. This is my mom's side of the family, where that was my dad's side of the family. And this is my mom when she was younger, and my mom when she was younger. Her mom's grandma and grandpa. And then up here, this was her mom and dad and some of the siblings. My mom's grandma and aunt, and then my mom's grandpa, and the log cabin that he built. But, I don't know why, or if you're actually interested in any of this. And um, kind of I'm bringing it up, pointing it out to you how it's kind of important to pass down your family history and keep those pictures, gather pictures while you can. And even if you don't have kids, like your relatives kids, would be interested in collecting, find somebody who's the historian of the family and give them the knowledge. Because if we don't pass on our generation, we end up with like today's generation. I'm not cutting the kids down today, but this is one of my grandson's t-shirt. And this, you have to remember, he graduated with a college degree from high school. But oh, you can't read it, it's backwards. Okay, let me read it to you. My perfect day: wake up, play number 1, 2, play video games, number 2, 3, eat breakfast, number 4 is play video games, number 5 is eat lunch, 6 is play video games, 7 is eat dinner, 8 is play video games, and 9 is go to sleep. We don't need to really, turn this into our future, and I'm not cutting down, you know, video games. And, this is just something funny, but, a lot of kids are living this, and it's becoming their lives, that they're gamers and they wake up and actually live this life. And, you know, it's kind of good if we pass on the traits of get outside and enjoy the weather, get outside and enjoy growing something. But it's like I'm down to one person in the room. Hi to whoever you are. But I guess I'll go ahead and close this video for now, and hope someone enjoys it. And then also, I'm not promoting the DNA test that you can buy, but it's kind of a good idea if you actually want to find out who your roots really are. Because on my dad's side of the family, a cousin found that she was related to us, and she was adopted, and it actually helped her become one of my first cousins. She found a second cousin of ours, and he brought her into the family and introduced us all to her on Facebook. So, you never know if also, I have a cousin too that's been lied to all of his life, and he doesn't know he's adopted. If he would just out of the blue take that test, there's a chance that, because his parents are gone now, and there's a chance maybe I'm just telling you that Germany, we have all kind. I guess you could call me a mutt. I'm rich in family history where they there's a lot of nationalities in my history. Where my husband's family, I did his DNA, not DNA, his history too, and traced his family all the way back to 1849. They came here from Germany, and all of them were German Catholics, and they all married German Catholics until my dad's, I mean, I'm sorry, mine and his. His dad married his mom, and his mom was German and French. her mom, your family ancestry, but like Seeds to Freedom brought up, that memories could be passed down too, and I have to listen more to. Sorry, I